Millionaire hires a nanny for his sick son, installs cameras, and discovers something shocking. The Harrington estate loomed over the Chicago skyline, its towering windows reflecting the fiery glow of the late October sun. Nathaniel Harrington stood in his private study on the top floor, his hand resting on a glass of bourbon he hadn't touched. His piercing blue eyes stared into the horizon, but his thoughts were far from the city below. Nathaniel's world, once filled with power and prestige, now felt hollow, its vast corridors echoing with silence. A quiet knock broke his trance. Evelyn, his loyal assistant of 15 years, entered holding a sleek black folder. "Mr. Harrington," she said with a calm professionalism that only partially masked her concern, "I've compiled the resumes for the candidates you requested." "How many this time?" Nathaniel asked, his voice flat as he turned to face her. 17, sir," Evelyn replied, placing the folder on his desk. "All with glowing references. Most have extensive experience caring for children with special needs." Nathaniel opened the folder, flipping through the pristine pages. Every candidate seemed perfect on paper, but he wasn't easily impressed. He'd learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving. "Schedule interviews with the top 5 for tomorrow," he said, closing the folder. Evelyn hesitated. "Dr. Grant called earlier. He's concerned about Adam's stability. He thinks switching caregivers so often isn't." "I pay Dr. Grant to treat my son, not to lecture me," Nathaniel snapped, his tone colder than the autumn wind outside. Evelyn nodded, stepping back. "Understood." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Adam asked if you'd have dinner with him tonight." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Tell him I have a conference call with London." He stopped himself, exhaling slowly. The image of Adam's hopeful face flashed in his mind. "Actually, cancel the call. I'll be there at 7. Alone again, Nathaniel opened his desk drawer and pulled out a framed photograph. The woman in the picture, Rachel, smiled brightly, her dark curls framing her face. Adam's features were her mirror image, her hazel eyes, her mischievous grin. It had been 6 years since the car accident, but the grief hadn't lessened. It still lived within him, a constant weight. From downstairs, he heard the faint sound of Adam's cough, followed by the soothing voice of the latest nanny, Mrs. Fletcher. She was the 4th this year. None of them lasted. None of them felt right. The idea of entrusting Adam's care to another stranger twisted Nathaniel's gut. When he entered the living room, Adam was curled up on the couch under his favorite blanket, watching a nature documentary. At the sight of his father, the boy's face lit up with a smile so familiar it made Nathaniel's heart ache. "Dad, you're having dinner with me." "Yes, buddy. And how about we order that pizza you love?" Adam's grin widened, but a sudden coughing fit shook his small frame. Mrs. Fletcher rushed over with the inhaler, and Nathaniel felt the familiar sting of helplessness. His son's fragile health was a constant reminder of how much he stood to lose. Later that night, after tucking Adam into bed, Nathaniel sat in his office, his gaze fixed on the security monitors. Every room in the estate was under surveillance, a fortress he'd built to protect his son. Tomorrow, he'd meet the candidates and choose the next person to enter their carefully controlled world. Among the names and faces in the folder, one stood out: Lily Morgan. Her qualifications were impeccable, and her references painted her as a compassionate caregiver with years of experience. But it was her photograph that struck him. Her smile was genuine, not the polished grin most candidates wore. His phone buzzed. It was Richard, his lawyer. "Do you want the same confidentiality clauses for the new nanny's contract?" Richard asked. "Add an extra one," Nathaniel replied. "No discussions about the security cameras. That might scare off the good ones," Richard cautioned. Nathaniel's gaze returned to Rachel's photo on his desk. Anyone who has nothing to hide won't mind. As the call ended, his attention lingered on Lily's resume. Something about her gave him pause. Maybe it was the honesty in her eyes, or maybe it was just a hunch. For the first time in a long time, Nathaniel felt curious. The Harrington estate was unusually quiet the next morning, save for the steady rhythm of Nathaniel's polished shoes against the marble floors. The estate's grand meeting room, usually reserved for high-stakes business deals, had been transformed into an interview space. It was clinical yet welcoming, with soft lighting and a single vase of white lilies on the glass table. Nathaniel sat at one end, reviewing his notes with a critical eye. Evelyn stood nearby, tablet in hand, prepared to manage the parade of candidates. "First one's ready, sir," she announced. The interviews passed in a blur of well-rehearsed answers and glowing resumes. Each candidate was polished and professional, but none left an impression. Nathaniel was beginning to regret canceling his morning meetings when Evelyn approached him again. "Last one, Mr. Harrington. Lily Morgan." As the doors opened, Nathaniel's attention snapped to the woman walking in. Lily was different. She didn't seem intimidated by the vastness of the room or his scrutinizing gaze. Dressed in a simple navy blue outfit, her posture was relaxed but confident. There was something grounded about her, a calmness that felt rare in the whirlwind of Nathaniel's world. "Ms. Morgan," he began, his tone sharp as ever, "your resume is impressive. 6 years caring for children with chronic illnesses, a degree in pediatric nursing, and multiple glowing recommendations. Almost too perfect." A faint smile touched Lily's lips. "Perfection's an illusion, Mr. Harrington. What I offer is dedication and honesty." Her response caught him off guard. Most candidates would leap to assure him of their capabilities, not challenge his remark. "Tell me about your last position," he asked, leaning back in his chair. "I worked with the Daniels family for 3 years. Their son, Oliver, had muscular dystrophy. The experience was both challenging and deeply rewarding." Her expression softened as she continued. "Unfortunately, Oliver passed away earlier this year. After that, I took some time to regroup before seeking a new role." Nathaniel studied her face. There was no attempt to hide the emotion in her voice, no mask of detachment. "Why do you think you're ready to take on another case like my son's?" Lily met his gaze steadily. "Because loss taught me to lead with compassion, not fear. Your son deserves someone who understands that caring for him is about more than routines and medications. It's about helping him live fully, even within his limits." Nathaniel's chest tightened. Her words struck a nerve he hadn't expected. He stood abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the sprawling gardens below. "This position requires more than professional competence," he said after a moment. "There are security cameras throughout the estate. Your privacy will be limited, and my expectations are high. Most find it invasive. If I were in your position, I'd probably do the same," Lily replied without hesitation. "But trust isn't built through surveillance, Mr. Harrington. It's built through actions." Nathaniel turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "Are you questioning me?" "No, sir. I'm being honest, as I promised at the start of this conversation." The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Evelyn, observing from the doorway, held her breath. She had never seen anyone stand their ground with Nathaniel Harrington so gracefully. "Would you like to meet Adam?" he asked suddenly, surprising even himself. Lily's serene composure never wavered. "I'd like that very much. Underscore 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 underscore. On the second floor of the mansion, Adam was finishing his breathing exercises when Nathaniel and Lily entered. The boy's hazel eyes lit up as he saw his father, but quickly shifted to Lily with curiosity. "You must be Adam," Lily said warmly, kneeling to his level. "I hear you're a fan of ocean documentaries." Adam's face lit up. "Do you like them too?" "I love them. Did you know that humpback whales create new songs every year?" "No way." Adam's laughter filled the room, a sound Nathaniel hadn't heard in weeks. Over the next hour, Lily and Adam talked about the ocean's mysteries, from coral reefs to abyssal creatures. What struck Nathaniel most was how seamlessly Lily integrated Adam's breathing exercises into their conversation, disguising therapy as playful interaction. Adam didn't even notice he was being treated. "Dad," Adam said later, as Lily left to grab him some water, "she's different." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "Yes, she is." That evening, Nathaniel sat in his study, the signed contract in his hands. Evelyn entered with a fresh pot of coffee. "The other candidates are still waiting, sir," she said. "Cancel the rest of the interviews," Nathaniel replied, not looking up. "Ms. Morgan starts tomorrow." Evelyn hesitated. "Are you sure?" She was bold. Precisely why she's the right choice. Later, as Nathaniel reviewed the day's footage from the security cameras, his focus lingered on the interaction between Lily and Adam. The way she balanced professionalism with genuine warmth was something he couldn't ignore. His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. "Contract finalized. She's on board." Placing the phone down, Nathaniel glanced at Rachel's photograph on his desk. "What would you think of her, Rachel?" he murmured into the silence. He didn't have the answer, but for the first time in years, a flicker of hope stirred within him. Maybe, just maybe, he had found someone who could help his son, and perhaps, even him, begin to heal. The sun filtered softly through the towering windows of the Harrington estate as Lily Morgan arrived for her first day. The air was crisp with the promise of late autumn, and a faint mist hovered over the garden. Dressed in a practical but polished outfit, Lily carried a small suitcase in one hand and a colorful gift-wrapped package in the other. Margaret, the head housekeeper, greeted her at the grand entrance. "Mr. Harrington is in his office," she said, her tone polite but brisk. He left detailed instructions about Adam's routine. "Shall I show you to his room?" "Yes, please," Lily replied, matching Margaret's professional demeanor. She couldn't help but notice the cool, almost clinical vibe of the house. Every surface gleamed with perfection, yet it felt strangely lifeless, like a museum more than a home. As they climbed the sweeping staircase to the second floor, Margaret hesitated at a door adorned with glow-in-the-dark stars. "Adam had a rough night," she said softly. "The change in weather always affects his breathing." "Could I see the overnight records?" Lily asked. "It helps to understand his patterns." Margaret blinked in surprise, but nodded. "I'll bring them to you." Inside the room, Adam was still asleep. His chest rose and fell with effort, and the soft beeping of the monitor beside his bed filled the air. Lily approached quietly, her practiced eye taking in the scene. His pale complexion and frail frame hinted at his ongoing battle, but even in sleep, his face held a serene innocence. "Good morning, Captain," she said gently as Adam stirred awake. The boy blinked up at her, confused at first, then curious. "You're not Mrs. Fletcher?" "Nope," Lily said, smiling. "I'm Lily. I thought we'd start today with something fun." From behind her back, she produced the brightly wrapped gift. Adam's eyes widened as he sat up, his thin arms struggling to push himself higher. "For me?" he asked, a hint of excitement breaking through his grogginess. "Open it and see." Inside was a constellation projector, a small device that could cast a night sky onto his ceiling. Adam gasped. "It's like having the whole universe in my room." "That's the idea," Lily said. "We'll make a starry ocean together. But first, how about breakfast? You'll need your strength for all the exploring we're going to do." Nathaniel watched the scene from his office monitor, his hand lingering over the controls. He told himself this surveillance was necessary, that it was about protecting Adam. Yet, as he observed Lily's ease with his son, the way she blended care with fun, he felt something shift within him. By mid-morning, Lily had turned Adam's routine into a series of small adventures. She transformed his breathing exercises into a game of captain's orders and narrated silly stories during his nebulizer treatments. When it was time for his medication, she described each pill as a superhero with a mission to strengthen him. Nathaniel decided to make an unannounced visit. He found them in the kitchen, where Adam was eating a bowl of brightly colored soup, not part of his usual diet. "What's this?" Nathaniel asked, his tone sharp as he gestured to the bowl. Lily turned, undeterred. "My special recipe. It's high in nutrients and low in sodium, perfectly aligned with Adam's dietary restrictions." Adam grinned. "Dad, you have to try it. It doesn't taste like medicine." Nathaniel hesitated but took a spoonful at Adam's insistence. To his surprise, it was delicious. "Next time, consult me before changing his meals," Nathaniel said, his voice gruff. "With respect, Mr. Harrington," Lily replied, handing him a detailed breakdown of the recipe. "It meets every guideline." And I've noticed Adam struggles to eat when food feels like another part of his treatment. Making it enjoyable helps. Nathaniel studied the document, searching for flaws, but finding none. Fair enough, he muttered, though his expression softened. That afternoon, Lily suggested something Nathaniel hadn't expected. Adam mentioned he'd like to visit the garden. A few minutes of fresh air could do wonders for him. Nathaniel's demeanor turned icy. Absolutely not. The risks are too high. Mr. Harrington, Lily said gently but firmly, isolation won't protect Adam forever. With the right precautions, small steps can strengthen him. Not just physically, but emotionally. The silence stretched between them. Nathaniel's need for control warred with the logic of her words. Give me a week, Lily pressed. If you don't see positive results, we'll stick to the usual routine. Nathaniel finally relented, his jaw tight. 1 week. As the week passed, subtle but significant changes began to take root. Adam's laughter became a more frequent sound, echoing through the halls. His breathing exercises became second nature, and he began asking curious questions about the world beyond his bedroom. Nathaniel watched it all unfold through the monitors. He couldn't deny the positive impact Lily was having on his son. She didn't just care for Adam. She brought light into the house, a light it hadn't seen since Rachel's death. One evening, after Adam had gone to bed, Nathaniel found Lily in the library, meticulously organizing his son's therapy records. Your notes are thorough, he said, holding up a folder she'd prepared. Adam deserves nothing less, Lily replied, looking up. Why do you care so much? Her gaze held his, unwavering. Because he reminds me of someone I lost. And because he's worth it. Nathaniel didn't respond immediately. Instead, he handed her an envelope. What's this? Your contract, he said. I've removed the clause about surveillance. You've earned my trust. For the first time, Lily seemed genuinely surprised. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Nathaniel, he corrected, his voice soft. As their eyes met, a flicker of something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the walls they were both beginning to lower. The week ended with an unexpected chill, and the sky over the Harrington estate turned dark with the promise of rain. Lily had spent her first days fully immersed in Adam's care, meticulously following every routine, while adding her own thoughtful touches. Small but impactful changes transformed the atmosphere of the house. Adam was smiling more, laughing often, and even Nathaniel had begun spending longer moments observing their interactions. That evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Lily sat beside Adam, helping him assemble a jigsaw puzzle of the solar system. The boy's breathing was steady, his cheeks rosy from the day's excitement in the garden. Did you know Saturn has 82 moons? Lily said, handing Adam a puzzle piece. 82. Adam's eyes widened. That's so many. It's true. I think it might need some help keeping track of them all. From the doorway, Nathaniel stood quietly, watching the scene. He hadn't meant to linger, but something about the warmth Lily brought into his son's life held him there longer than he cared to admit. Dad! Adam spotted him, waving enthusiastically. Come help us finish Saturn. Nathaniel hesitated, his instinct to retreat warring with the rare joy of seeing his son so animated. Before he could decide, the lights flickered, and a sharp crack of thunder shook the house. Adam tensed, his breathing quickening. Adam, let's breathe like astronauts, Lily said calmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. In through the nose, out through the mouth. We don't want to fog up the helmet, right? Adam nodded, focusing on her steady rhythm. Slowly, his breathing returned to normal. Nathaniel stepped into the room, his expression unreadable. You handled that well. Crisis averted, Lily said with a soft smile. But the storm outside was only a prelude to what was about to unfold. Later that night, after Adam had fallen asleep, Nathaniel asked Lily to join him in his office. He was going over company documents, but his expression was darker than usual. Something wrong? Lily asked as she stepped inside. Nathaniel gestured to a folder on his desk. I need you to file these for me. Top drawer. She crossed the room, opened the drawer, and accidentally knocked over a stack of papers. As she stooped to gather them, one document caught her eye, a police report. Her heart sank as she read the word suspicious circumstances regarding brake system failure. Before she could process what she was seeing, Nathaniel's voice cut through the air like a whip. "What are you doing?" Lily froze, clutching the papers. "I'm sorry." "The drawer." "Put it down." His tone was ice. She placed the papers on his desk, her voice steady, but her heart racing. "Mr. Harrington, I didn't mean to." "Get out," he snapped, his eyes blazing with a fury that caught her off guard. "Nathaniel, please." "I said get out." The words echoed through the office, loud enough to stir Adam upstairs. Lily backed away, her mind spinning as she exited the room. In the hallway, Adam appeared in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "What's wrong? Why was Dad yelling?" Lily knelt beside him, her voice calm despite the turmoil inside her. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Grown-ups get upset sometimes. But everything will be okay. Let's get you back to bed." As Adam fell asleep, Lily returned to her room to find an envelope on her nightstand. Inside was a check for an exorbitant amount and a note. "Your services are no longer required. Leave by morning." Lily stared at the note, the betrayal stinging more than she expected. But instead of packing, she grabbed the envelope and marched back to Nathaniel's office. He was sitting in the dark, a glass of bourbon in his hand, his posture stiff with tension. "You can't fire me," she said firmly. Nathaniel's head snapped up. "Excuse me." "Adam has a medical appointment tomorrow. He starts aquatic therapy next week. And in 3 days, he has a school project he's excited about. I'm not leaving him in the middle of all that." "You crossed a line," Nathaniel said, his voice dangerously low. "You don't understand." "I understand more than you think," Lily interrupted, stepping closer. "You've built walls so high around yourself and Adam that you've forgotten what it's like to let someone in. But those walls aren't protecting you, they're isolating you." Nathaniel stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. "Don't you dare lecture me about my son." "Your son," Lily said softly, "is desperate to know about his mother. He asks about her every day. Do you know what he wants to know most? If she loved him. Because you never talk about her. You never share her memory. You're so afraid of losing him that you're suffocating him." Nathaniel staggered to the window, his back to her. "You don't know anything about loss." "Don't I?" Lily's voice broke slightly. "I lost my brother, Nathaniel. I was his caregiver for years. I gave up everything to fight for him, only to lose him in the end. Do you know what I learned? That silence doesn't protect you. It only makes the grief heavier." Nathaniel's shoulders slumped. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, he spoke. "It was my fault." Lily stepped closer. "What was?" "Rachel's accident," he said, his voice raw. "She wanted to drive herself to Adam's school recital. I was too busy with a deal to take her. If I'd gone—" "It wasn't your fault," Lily interrupted, her tone firm but kind. Nathaniel turned, his eyes glistening. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I see how much you love Adam. How far you'd go to protect him. The man I've come to know isn't reckless. He's a father trying to do his best in an impossible situation." The air between them was heavy with unspoken truths. Before either could say more, a faint cry came from Adam's room. "Mommy," he sobbed in his sleep. Nathaniel and Lily rushed to his side. Nathaniel sat on the bed, pulling Adam into his arms. "I'm here, buddy. I'm here." Adam's eyes fluttered open. "Dad, tell me about her. About Mom." Nathaniel hesitated, his throat tight. Then, for the first time in years, he began to speak. "Your mom, she had the most beautiful laugh. She loved dancing in the rain. Did I ever tell you about the time she pulled me into a storm just to twirl on the lawn?" Adam's small smile widened as his father's words painted a vivid picture of the woman he'd never truly known. Lily stepped back, her heart swelling at the sight. Nathaniel's walls weren't just cracking. They were beginning to fall. The first snow of winter fell softly on the Harrington estate, blanketing the grounds in pristine white. Inside, the house felt warmer than it had in years. Adam was in the living room, a blanket draped over his legs as he worked on his school project about whales. His excitement was palpable, his cheeks flushed with color, a far cry from the quiet, withdrawn boy Lily had first met. Nathaniel sat at his desk in the adjoining study, his laptop open but forgotten. His eyes kept straying to the sight of his son, laughing as Lily handed him glue for his project. She knelt beside Adam, her gentle guidance transforming every small task into an adventure. Nathaniel found himself smiling, a rare, unguarded moment. Later that afternoon, while Adam took his post-lunch nap, Nathaniel found Lily in the library. She was organizing Adam's therapy records, meticulously annotating them with observations. "You've been thorough," Nathaniel remarked, breaking the quiet. "Adam deserves that," Lily replied, looking up. Nathaniel hesitated, his expression conflicted. "Lily, about the other night. I owe you an apology." "You don't," she said, setting down the papers. "I understand why you reacted the way you did." He took a deep breath. "But I was wrong. You were right, about everything. About the walls I've built, about how I've kept Adam from knowing Rachel. I thought I was protecting him, but I've only been protecting myself." Lily stepped closer, her gaze soft but steady. "It's not too late to change that." Nathaniel's voice lowered. "You've already started to change it. You've done more for Adam, and for me, than I can put into words." Before Lily could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Evelyn entered, holding a file. "Mr. Harrington," she said, her tone unusually gentle. "The results of the investigation are in." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He took the file and dismissed Evelyn with a nod. For a moment, he just stared at it. Lily watched him carefully. "You don't have to do this alone," she said softly. He opened the file, his face darkening as he scanned the pages. "It wasn't a random accident," he said finally. "Rachel's brakes were tampered with. It was sabotage from someone inside the company." Lily's breath caught. "Who?" "Maxwell Bennett," Nathaniel said, his voice cold. "He was the head of security at the time. He confessed to the police this morning. He was paid off by a competitor." The weight of the revelation settled heavily in the room. Nathaniel closed the file and leaned against the desk, his hands gripping the edge. "For years, I've blamed myself," he admitted, his voice breaking. "If I'd just been there." "You would have been in the car too," Lily interrupted. "And Adam would have lost both of you." Her words hung in the air, a stark but undeniable truth. Nathaniel looked up at her, his blue eyes filled with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "How do I let go of the guilt?" "You don't let it go," Lily said gently. "You learn to live with it, and you use it to honor her memory." Nathaniel stepped closer to her, the distance between them shrinking. "That's what you've taught me. That love isn't about control or perfection. It's about showing up, even when it hurts. About taking risks." Lily's heart raced as his words sank in. "Nathaniel, I know this isn't the time or the place," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "But I need to say this. Lily, you've done more than care for Adam. You've brought life back into this house. You've brought light back into my life." Before she could respond, Adam's voice called from upstairs. "Dad, Lily, come see my project." Nathaniel smiled faintly. Saved by the captain. That evening, after Adam was asleep, Nathaniel found Lily on the balcony overlooking the snow-covered garden. She was bundled in a thick sweater, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Mind some company?" he asked, stepping outside. "Not at all," she said, her lips curving into a soft smile. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the snow fall. Then Nathaniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I wasn't going to do this tonight," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "but I can't wait any longer." Lily turned to him, her breath catching as he knelt in the snow. "Lily Morgan," he said, his voice steady now, "will you marry me? Not because Adam needs a mother, or because I feel lonely, but because you've shown me that it's possible to love deeply more than once. That love can grow, even in the darkest places. You've made me believe in a future I didn't think I deserved." Lily stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Nathaniel, this is—" "Say yes," he urged, opening the box to reveal a stunning sapphire ring surrounded by tiny diamonds. "Adam helped me pick it out. He said it reminded him of the ocean, where you're happiest." Lily laughed softly, through her tears. He's too clever for his own good. Nathaniel's expression softened. So, what do you say? She knelt in the snow to meet him at eye level, her hands cupping his face. Yes, Nathaniel. 1,000,000 times yes. Relief and joy washed over his face as he slipped the ring onto her finger. He pulled her into a kiss, the snow swirling around them like confetti. From the balcony door, Adam peeked out, grinning. Told you she'd say yes. Lily laughed, pulling the boy into her arms. Were you spying on us, Captain? Just making sure Dad didn't mess it up, Adam said cheekily. Nathaniel ruffled his son's hair. You're lucky she's the forgiving type. The three of them stood together under the falling snow, a family born from loss, but bound by love. The wedding day arrived with a bright winter sun reflecting off the pristine snow that blanketed the Harrington estate. The once somber mansion was now alive with warmth and anticipation. Nathaniel, dressed in a classic black tuxedo, stood in front of the mirror in his room, adjusting his cufflinks. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace, a fragile but real hope for the future. Dad, Adam's voice called from the doorway. Nathaniel turned to find his son in a tiny tuxedo, complete with a bow tie that was slightly crooked. He knelt to fix it, his hand steady despite the emotions bubbling beneath the surface. You look sharp, Captain, Nathaniel said, smiling. Adam beamed. Do you think Mom would have liked Lily? Nathaniel's throat tightened, but he nodded. She would have loved her. She had a way of recognizing the best in people. Just like you do. Adam's face lit up, and he pulled his father into a quick hug before running off to find Lily. Down the hall, Lily stood in the bridal suite, her reflection staring back at her in the full-length mirror. The dress she wore was simple yet elegant, with soft waves of ivory fabric that reminded her of the ocean. Around her neck was Rachel's pearl necklace, a gift Nathaniel had given her the night before with a note that read, These pearls carried Rachel's love through the hardest days. Today, they carry ours into something new. Something's missing, Margaret said, fussing with the hem of the veil. As if on cue, Adam burst into the room, holding a small bouquet of blue hydrangeas. These are for you, he said, shyly handing them to Lily. Dad said they're special because they're the same color as your ring. Lily knelt, her smile widening. Thank you, Adam. You're my favorite ring bearer. You know that. Even better than the movies? Adam asked, grinning. Way better, she replied, placing a soft kiss on his forehead. As Adam skipped out, Margaret stepped back and admired the final look. You're ready, she said, her voice uncharacteristically soft. Lily glanced at the pearls around her neck and whispered to herself, Thank you, Rachel. The ceremony was held in the estate's winter garden, where an enchanting canopy of white and blue flowers created the feeling of being underwater. Guests were seated in an intimate circle, the crisp air warmed by the glow of fairy lights strung through the hedges. When the music began, Nathaniel's breath hitched as he saw Lily appear at the top of the aisle. She moved with grace, her eyes shining as they locked on his. Around her neck, the pearls seemed to catch the light, a subtle but powerful reminder of the connection between the past and the future. Adam walked beside her, proudly carrying the rings in a small velvet box. As Lily reached the altar, Nathaniel took her hand. You're stunning, he whispered, his voice unsteady. And you clean up pretty well yourself, she replied, squeezing his fingers. The officiant began. Today, we are not only celebrating the union of two people, but also honoring the journey that brought them here. A journey filled with challenges, love, and hope. Nathaniel spoke his vows first. His voice, though deep and confident, carried the weight of years of grief and growth. Lily, you've shown me that love isn't about avoiding pain, but about embracing the beauty in life despite it. You've brought light back into my world, and you've given Adam the laughter and warmth he's been missing. I promise to honor your strength, cherish your kindness, and never take for granted the family we've built together. Tears glistened in Lily's eyes as she began her vows. Nathaniel, you've taught me that even broken hearts can find new ways to love. You've shown me that family isn't just something you're born into. It's something you choose to create. I promise to stand beside you, to be a safe harbor for you and Adam, and to honor the memory of the love that came before us, because it's a part of the love we share now." Adam stepped forward with the rings, his grin as wide as the sky. "I want to say something too," he announced, his voice clear and determined. The guests chuckled softly as Adam turned to Lily and Nathaniel. "I promise to be the best son ever for both of you," he said, his small hands clutching the rings tightly. "And I promise to keep all the love in my heart, the love we have here, and the love from Mom, because I think she's really happy for us today." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden as Nathaniel placed the sapphire ring on Lily's finger, and she slid a simple yet elegant band onto his. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said, his voice warm. Nathaniel leaned forward, his hands gently cupping Lily's face as he kissed her, sealing their vows under the soft glow of the winter lights. The reception was held in the estate's main garden, where a light drizzle began to fall just as the band played their first song. Nathaniel glanced at Lily, a playful smile tugging at his lips. "I think someone's trying to tell us something," he said, holding out his hand. "Are you suggesting we dance in the rain?" Lily teased, her laughter bubbling up. "Rachel wouldn't have it any other way," he replied. Lily took his hand, and the two stepped into the soft drizzle, twirling and laughing as the guests followed their lead. Adam ran between them, his crystal-clear laughter blending with the music. Later, as the party wound down, the three of them found themselves on the balcony, watching a faint rainbow stretch across the horizon. "Look," Adam said, pointing. "7 colors, like the 7 kinds of love." "What are the 7 kinds of love?" Lily asked, wrapping an arm around Adam. "Well," Adam said, counting on his fingers, "red is Mom's love, orange is Dad's love for us, yellow is my love for you, green is nature's love, blue is your love, Lily, indigo is the love that's still coming, and violet is the love we don't even know about yet." Nathaniel and Lily exchanged a glance, their hearts swelling with emotion. "You're quite the philosopher, Captain," Nathaniel said, pulling Adam into a hug. "You know what?" Nathaniel added, his voice thoughtful. "I think I finally understand what Rachel meant about dancing in the rain." "What did she mean?" Lily asked. "That life's most beautiful moments come when you least expect them, even in the middle of a storm." The three of them stood together, bathed in the fading light. The Harrington estate no longer a house of sorrow, but a home where love, in all its forms, was celebrated and cherished. The winter months melted into spring, and with them came a new chapter for the Harrington family. The once somber estate was now alive with color and laughter. The garden bloomed with vibrant flowers, and the echoes of Adam's joy rang through the halls, mixing with the soft hum of daily life. Lily and Nathaniel embraced their new roles as husband and wife with ease, but it was their shared journey as a family with Adam that truly defined their days. Gone were the rigid schedules and the quiet tension that had once gripped the house. In their place was something rare and beautiful, a home filled with love, warmth, and hope. One particularly sunny afternoon, Nathaniel and Lily stood side by side in Rachel's memorial room. The space had been transformed into a serene sanctuary filled with photographs, keepsakes, and memories that celebrated her life. Adam's additions, a drawing of their family, a collection of seashells he'd gathered with Lily, and a small figurine of a humpback whale, added a layer of innocence and joy to the tribute. "This was the perfect idea," Nathaniel said, his voice warm. "I think Rachel would be proud," Lily replied, running her fingers along the edge of a photo frame. Adam's laughter interrupted their quiet moment. They turned to find him at the doorway, holding a notebook and grinning ear to ear. "Guess what?" he said, his voice full of excitement. "What's that, Captain?" Nathaniel asked, stepping forward. "I finished my story," Adam announced, waving the notebook. "Story?" Lily asked, kneeling down to meet him at eye level. Adam nodded, his green eyes sparkling. "It's about a lighthouse, just like the one you wear on your necklace." Lily's hand instinctively went to the small pendant, a gift from Nathaniel that symbolized her steady presence in their lives. "I'd love to hear it," she said. Adam opened the notebook and began to read. His story was about a lighthouse that stood strong through every storm, guiding ships safely home. But one day, the lighthouse met a captain who taught it something new, that sometimes, even lighthouses needed a light of their own. By the time he finished, both Nathaniel and Lily had tears in their eyes. "That's beautiful, Adam," Nathaniel said, pulling his son into a hug. "You're quite the storyteller." "Just like Mom," Adam said softly. Nathaniel's heart ached at the mention of Rachel, but it was no longer the sharp pain of grief. It was the bittersweet comfort of knowing that her love was still alive in their memories and in the family they'd become. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them sat on the balcony, their favorite spot to end the day. The sky was painted in hues of orange, pink, and gold, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. "Dad," Adam said suddenly, breaking the peaceful silence, "can we visit the ocean this summer?" Nathaniel and Lily exchanged a glance, both smiling. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Lily said, brushing a curl from Adam's forehead. "We'll make it happen," Nathaniel promised. "We'll go as a family. Can we take Mom's shells with us?" Adam asked, his voice hopeful. "So she can see the ocean, too." Nathaniel's throat tightened, but he nodded. "Of course, Captain. She'd love that." As the first stars appeared in the sky, Adam rested his head against Lily's arm, his small body relaxing into hers. Nathaniel draped a blanket over all three of them, his arms settling around Lily's shoulders. "You know," Lily said softly, looking up at the stars, "Rachel's words were right." "Which ones?" Nathaniel asked. "About the ocean. How it holds infinite space for all the tides and currents." She paused, her voice full of emotion. "Our love doesn't replace her. It's part of it. She's always going to be with us. In every step we take." Nathaniel leaned in, pressing a kiss to Lily's temple. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "For teaching me that love can grow again. For being the light we didn't know we needed." Adam yawned, his voice sleepy but clear. "And for being the best family ever." As the night settled around them, the Harrington family sat together, gazing at the stars. The darkness no longer felt daunting. Instead, it was a canvas, filled with the light of the love they had found, the memories they cherished, and the future they were building together. In Rachel's memorial room, a soft breeze stirred the shells hanging in the window, their gentle chime of final blessing for the family that had learned to dance in the rain and find joy in the storms. It was a beginning, not an ending, proof that love, in all its forms, is eternal.